in his brand new book, which comes out on October 25th, wherever you get your books. It's entitled Funky, My Defiant Path Through the Wild World of Combat Sports, written by the great Ben Askren, with some help by the great Chuck Mindenhall, the man in the hat. Yes, some breaking news there. Even some advanced praise by the likes of Ariel Helwani and Daniel Cormier. Everyone's talking about it, and now he's here to talk to us about it, the one and only Ben Askren. Is he there? Oh, there he is in his familiar spot. Hello, Ben. How are you?
Good. In my podcast studio, keeping it nice and warm. I talked about some wrestling this morning, and I'm ready to talk to you.
Well, congratulations. By the way, the IFB, it's always been something I've wanted to bring up to you. You know that thing in your ears called an IFB? It's supposed to go...
I didn't know that.
Yes, it's called an IFB. It's supposed to go over the ear, not in the ear like that. Why don't you do it over the ear so that it's supposed to be hidden?
I got cauliflower ear. You making fun of me?
No, it won't work. I mean, it's in there.
No, it doesn't. Like if I do this, like because of the way my ear is shaped, it pops off.
All right. I appreciate it.
So it's subtle enough. It works. It's good. I actually, to the headphones you have, when I first started podcasting, I had those type of things. And I didn't like the way they felt on my head for like, you go for like 3 hours. I go for like, say 90 minutes. I didn't like it. I was like sick of it. I wanted to take it off.
I agree with you. I don't like how they feel or how they look, if I'm being honest, but they sound good. You can really hear yourself in them, so I go with it. But it's a little, I mean, for being honest, I feel like a dork wearing these things for 3-4 hours. Who speaks to people like this? In any event, brand new book comes out October 25th. The great Chuck Mindenhall worked with you on this, but these are, how about that?
I wanted to put his name on the cover. Well, you're just out here outing him. I wanted to put
He told me I could.
Because but then he wouldn't let me put his name on the book, and I felt weird because I don't nearly have the writing capabilities that he does, and so he makes it sound like it's my voice. Which our process was, it was during coronavirus, and I needed something to do, and I love Chuck, and I said, "Hey Chuck, let's write a book," and he said, "Sure." And so right after my hip surgery, he came out because I took 2 weeks off from everything after my hip surgery because I couldn't really like walk or do anything, And we just talked for like 3 days. And then, he would write a chapter and then I would read it. And then we get on the phone for like an hour and just kind of talk through it. And I was just always so impressed with how it literally sounds like me. I would read it. I'd be like, that is like exactly how I would say that right there. It was just so impressive. So I wanted to put his name on the book, and he was always pushing back against it. So, but I guess now everyone knows.
He's a very humble guy. He doesn't like the attention. He wanted all the attention to be yours. It's a great read. It's a very quick read. It's less than 200 pages, but it talks about all the great moments in your career. Was this like a bucket list thing for you? Like if COVID never happened and everyone wasn't at home during that time, do you think you would have done this, or was it just something that you thought of because you were kind of bored?
Definitely not this soon. I mean, I'm an avid reader. I love reading biographies. I was actually complaining on my wrestling podcast about how there's not a lot of wrestling biographies. Like it's really slim pickings over the last 20 years. Cejudo, Anthony Robles, like there's a couple, but not a lot.
Well, there's also The Rock, China, Stone Cold, Mankind.
I mean, I like those guys, but and MMA, and there's been some in MMA. I mean, Uriah had one, George St. Pierre, BJ, Tito. I believe Ronda, so like there's been some good ones, and I believe I've read anyone who's kind of high level who's put out a book. And so there's just, to me, like I would just continue to read wrestlers and fighters biographies, but there's just not that many of them, coming out. So I felt like, with Corona, it gave me a good opportunity. I had interesting careers in both wrestling and mixed martial arts, and I thought people would enjoy reading it.
And another one who had a book recently that I thought was really good was Michael Bisping. Shout out to Bisping. I don't know if you ever read his.
I have not read his yet. No, yeah, you're right. I missed that one.
You don't like Bisping? Is that why?
No, I mean, I don't know. He's kind of an interesting character. I generally find him entertaining. He's had some hot and cold takes on me, but I think that's kind of what he does. And just whatever, that's part of the job.
Speaking of which, I feel like you've kind of stayed out of the limelight over the last few months. I know you're very, obviously very involved in the world of collegiate wrestling. Yeah. But as far as MMA, like, was this a conscious decision? Maybe knowing that you were going to come out and do some media for the book. It feels to me last few months we haven't seen a lot of Ben Askren.
No, not really. I mean, I just try to. I mean, obviously, it's not in my day-to-day life. Right? I'm not training any fighters. I work out with one guy, Jordan Newman, who he came up through AWA and he won a couple national titles. And he's fighting in Bellator, and so I train with him like once a week, and he still works at one of our AWAs. But that's really it for my involvement in mixed martial arts. And so it's more like I try to be authentic in all my. I mean, I'm really active on Twitter, and that's it. So I try to be authentic, and so like if there's something I want to see or I'm sitting down to watch a fight, I'll tweet about the fights. But man, if I don't have anything to say, I probably won't say too much.
I'm very happy that you wrote this book. I'm very happy that you decided to do this. Because can I say something? Like, can I be honest with you?
Yeah, be as honest as you want.
There's something that bothers me. That really annoys me, especially, I mean, up until today, it annoys me. I feel like there's a lot of revisionist history when it comes to your career. In MMA, I think in the world of wrestling, people know who you are. Who are you writing to right now? You're typing to someone. What's going on? Are you with me here?
How can you see that?
I can see. I'm very perceptive. Who are you writing to?
I got a business deal going on.
Right now, you're doing a business deal?
No big business. It's small.
This is how uninterested you are in me talking about your book and career?
Ariel, finish your sentence. I already.
What's the business?
Where you're going.
Is it Bitcoin? Is it Ethereum?
Bitcoin's in a no.
Is it dead?
We're in a bear market.
Okay.
Oh, it's not. No, hell no, not dead. I went to $3,000 Bitcoin. We're great. Keep going.
Okay.
I mean,
this
is where we got the fight in the first place, all the way back in like 2000 and.
This is the fight.
2012. No, you got mad at me because I think I was eating, and you were like, you were pissed about it, and then you said I suck or something. I'm like, dude, I just beat Douglas Lima 5 rounds to nothing. And you said I suck. Like, I just couldn't punch him hard enough to finish him. It sucked.
I'm so happy you bring this up. By the way,
I learned when you're on top of someone, you use your elbows and they're a lot more effective. But it took me a while to learn that. Actually, one of the guys I was thinking about when I was thinking about this is Bo Nickal, because I remember I ran into his sister at the NCAAs he graduated, which was either 18 or 19. I don't recall which year. One of those 2 years, right? And one of my things I said was like he should fight as soon as possible because it does take a while to get into the limelight. So you're gonna have this period where you're probably like not making barely any money, And he did a few years where he didn't fight like at all. He was training the whole time, but not fighting. And now he's kind of being thrust in the spotlight. And I feel like he's built up a lot of skills in that period where he wasn't fighting. And so now I'm thinking, was my advice wrong, or maybe he just would have done that good in the first place?
Wow. Okay, so you just presented me with 3 completely different paths to take this interview.
That's how my brain
You're
works.
so good. Okay, let me just because the last point was Bo, so let's just stick on Bo for a second. How about this guy? I mean, can I just tell you something? I don't remember the last time I was this excited about a prospect in MMA. And I'm not comparing him to like Connor or someone like a guy who was this young with this type of potential, this refined, this confident, this good. Do you share this enthusiasm that I have?
Yeah, so I think he's good. I think obviously we need to see him against someone more high level. I do. I think like part of me says like he can go all the way and take a title right now, especially because there's not really a lot of high level wrestlers at that weight class. Especially if the UFC gives him the push and they give him the right matchups, he can definitely go far fast. And then part of me says, well, what if he's just not there yet? And maybe he should take a couple of years beating up some guys who aren't that good, and then make that jump. So it is kind of like, where do you go there? And then yeah, I mean, the other thing I think about this a lot is there was a period, maybe we'll say somewhere between 4 and 8 years ago, and it lasted a little bit, where almost every single UFC champion was an American, specifically American wrestler. Right. And now we're at a period where there's almost none, so it was Cormier and Stipe and Woodley and Demetrius wrestled and Henry wrestled and Dominic Cruz wrestled and Dillashaw wrestled. I mean, all these dudes, I know I'm forgetting a few. I'm sorry. Weidman.
That's a great point.
And now there's almost none. So I think the American wrestling community is so fired up for someone to go represent us again and do really well.
Who wins right now if they fight in December? Bo Nickal, Khamzat.
Oh man, that's fun. Oh man, I mean, anything I would be giving would be just speculation, right? Because we haven't seen Bo against anyone.
But right now, knowing him, you know him very well.
I know, but I've never seen it. But yeah, I mean, I haven't seen him fight.
Don't sit on the fence. Right now, who wins? Bo Nickal, Khamzat.
Oh, that's such a tough choice. It really is tough. I mean, the fact that I'm saying it's a tough choice, I think, is a huge compliment to Bo, right?
Yeah.
Because Khamzat is a guy that people were saying should be fighting for a title a while ago, and he's probably right there, but he's not doing it quite yet. Um, I'll say Bo, but like I say, it's pure speculation.
I feel like your point there is 100%. The fact that we can even have this debate speaks volumes on how good he is. I feel like your heart says Bo, your mind says Khamzat. You just don't want to disrespect your wrestling brethren.
Yeah, and obviously I'm cheering for my wrestling people. Khamzat's a funny one because when he came out in 2020, it was like, wow, this guy's going to be fighting for a title really fast. And the weird part about it is he hasn't lost. And so it's like, well, how is he still not fighting for a title? Because we thought this was going to happen a while ago now. And he's still like, his next one's probably not a title fight. So is it like one away? Is it still two more away? Why did he lose steam like this? It's kind of weird, you know?
Well, he was out for a year. He got really sick. He retired, remember? So that slowed things down. And I think that had Usman beat Leon, I think that he would have fought Usman next. Now, what's the deal you're doing now? You're typing something else now.
You think Usman and Edwards are going to fight again?
Yes, of course, in March. Although I did see a comment from his man, or sorry, April. It was a comment from his manager saying that Usman would be open to fighting Leon in England. And I'm like, well, I don't know if it's your call anymore, whether the fight happens in England or not. I mean, Leon's the champ. He gets to decide. By the way, how crazy was that, huh? Were you shocked?
That was wild, dude. You know what? I'm gonna be honest. I watched that fight, but like a little before the knockout, I walked away. It was like the fight. I thought it was over, and I don't recall what I went to do, whether it's grab a book or grab something to eat or go to the bathroom. I don't recall. And I come back and that happened. And I was like, oh my God, what did I miss? This is crazy. Right. And sometimes you forget how insane the sport of mixed martial art was. So, Leon is a guy who I gave a lot of shit to because it took him so long to get a title shot. And I actually do in my book also. But I got to say, and I do not know this guy. It kind of felt good seeing him win.
Yeah. He's a very likable guy, right?
Yeah, very likable.
Do you think he wins the rematch?
He's gonna have to make some adjustments. I mean, it's possible. One of the things that having a lot of cage time, this some wrestlers have, is like, when Usman pushes in that hard for 25 minutes, practice is always different than a fight, right? Practice is always different than a wrestling match. It's all I don't know why it is. And as much as you try to simulate it and make it the same, it's just not, And so now that Leon has been pushed that hard in a fight, he knows he's got those extra gears, and he might not have known that before, And now he knows, dude, I can battle for 25 minutes. So that's going to make him fight harder and longer. Obviously, he's still going to have to become more proficient at stopping the takedown. I mean, I think obviously in the first round, and then kind of moving on, he was definitely more proficient wrestler than I anticipated against Usman. But he did get tired in that third and fourth round. He was really starting to fade. And then, fifth round, I guess he just said, hey, I'm going to freaking go do this. And he went and did it.
It's a fascinating thing, right? Because obviously Usman won 3 out of the first 4 rounds. But then when you get knocked out for the first time like that, it changes you as a human being. It changes you as a fighter, right? So I'm not really quite sure which.
I don't think it did.
No?
For me, no. I was just like, that happened, and
it doesn't make you trepidatious. It doesn't make you second guess yourself. No.
I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel it. Did I ever tell you this story? I just told the story to someone for the first time, but it involves you. So
please.
I know you're kind of maybe my bad luck charm.
Oh, wow. Geez.
You invited me. I don't know if you remember this. In June of 2019, you invited me. You did a game show type thing. You remember?
Yes, in Chicago. It was great.
Okay. And I'm forgetting who all was there. I remember the majority of them. Okay, Stipe was there. Stephen Thompson was there.
Eddie Alvarez.
And then Eddie. Oh, that's who I forgot when I was telling the story the last time. Eddie. Okay, I could not remember. I was like, I'm trying to picture us sitting in this room, and I couldn't picture everyone. And they started talking about the last time they got knocked out, and then everyone kind of looks at me, and they were all kind of like, yeah, it happens to everyone. And they're like, except you.
Wow.
Like, oh, why you guys got to do that to me? And then effing a month later, freaking that happens, and it was like, but they were all, for a second, they were like, except you, it's never happened to you. That's pretty, yeah.
And was that something you took pride in?
Yeah, of course. I mean, being undefeated is something you take pride in, right?
Undefeated, but also not knocked out. Like, it's one thing to lose via decision, submission.
I've never really been knocked down or anything.
Even in training.
In training, no, never. Not once, ever.
Wow.
There's this one really weird story. I'll tell you a weird story. There's
Tell me.
one time, when I moved to Phoenix in 2009. So I had not fought in Bellator yet. So I actually had my 2 fights, February and April, my first year. And then my next one was like September. So I moved to Arizona to coach at Arizona State Wrestling. And I'm like, okay, let me go check out all these gyms. Okay. And so I'm kind of going around the gyms and I go into Arizona Power Sports. That was what it called, right?
That was the one with
Brothers.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Power Sports. Power MMA?
No, Power MMA is a new name. I don't.
All right.
How was it called? Arizona Combat Sports.
Combat Sports. Yeah.
Combat Sports. Thank you. I was confusing with Power MMA.
Yeah.
And so this I have a brand new fighter, and they're like, okay, it's sparring day. I'm like, okay, cool, it's sparring day, you know. So I was sparring with this big dude. I don't think he was a good fighter. I mean, I don't think he was a known fighter. I went a couple rounds with him, and I kind of had my way a little bit. And then he said, hey, let's go again. And I said, okay. And he was really like swinging hard at me. And then the next thing I remember, I'm punching the bag. And I look around. I'm like, oh, it's Ryan Bader. I know him. Oh, that's Aaron Simpson. I know him. I'm like, okay, I'm at Arizona Combat Sports and I'm hitting the bag. I'm like, did I get knocked out? You know? And so then I said, Aaron, hey, did I get knocked out or something? He's like, I don't think so. And I'm like, all right, whatever. You know, I didn't think much of it. So I got clipped a little bit there. Obviously, I didn't go down or anything because, Aaron would have known if I had fallen down or something, you know? So, I guess I just got clipped and then I just kept fighting. And then, but I kind of wasn't clicking for a couple minutes. And because it was the last round and then we were hitting the bags afterwards.
So you just kind of like forget everything.
Yeah, for at least a couple minutes.
Wow. So that leads me to ask, do you remember the whole night against Masvidal? Like, do you remember everything?
Not the fight.
You have no
talk about this in the book.
Yeah, well, I
don't know. I no, my first recollection, there was this is hilarious. I sit up and I see Luke Rockhold. I'm like, fuck, that's Luke Rockhold. That means I'm in the hospital.
Oh.
That's what I thought. Because I knew he got knocked out by Jan Blachowicz. And I sit up and I'm like, what's Luke Rockhold doing here?
Wow.
Fuck, I'm in the hospital. And then I looked and I said, my wife was over here and I was telling my wife, I'm like, what happened? And she's like, it wasn't good. I said, I'm not sweaty. Like I could feel like I'm not sweaty at all, I'm not sore. I didn't hurt at all, so it was like I must not have been in like a hard fight or nothing. Like I kind of knew that.
When does the memory end that day?
I'm staring at George getting ready to fight.
Okay, and you remember everything up until that point. Like that's okay.
I'm getting ready to fight, and then boom.
Amazing. And I'll never forget that night we were texting, and I don't usually like to ask people to come on my show on the Monday after a loss, but you were like totally fine, even kind of self-deprecating about it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to shoot my shot. And you're like, yeah, I'll do it. And I couldn't believe that you didn't hide, you didn't run away, you didn't, go dark for 2 months. Why is that?
Things happen in life, right? What are you gonna do about them? Like, is hiding gonna make it any better? Is it gonna make it go away? It's not gonna make it go away. And that's, that's kind of, I think that's a big part of my book. And one of my friends who I sent it to, he said he was reading with, I think like his 10, 11, 12-year-old son. So there are a few F words in their parents. So my wife thinks that's a big deal. I don't think it's a huge deal, just FYI. He said he was reading with his son. He said, one of the big things, and this is kind of early, especially early in my wrestling career, is like, you just got to go try, right? And there's so many people who are paranoid with this. What if I fail? What if I fail? And there's so many things they don't even start. They don't even start them because they're worried about what if I fail. And to me, it was just like, I'm going to go try and I'm going to try and I'm going to try. And I'm just going to keep, every time I do something, I'm going to learn a little bit. I'm going to get a little better. I'm going to get a little better. And that was kind of in wrestling. I started out as someone who wasn't very good, and really the entirety of my wrestling career. So I, retired at the Olympics 24. Like I got significantly better every single year from say like age 11. Age 11, every year was like a big jump, and that was why I just, So I never saw like protecting a record or trying not to be embarrassed. I never saw that as a virtue. The virtue was like, let's go compete in battle and see what happens.
I have a theory about this. I want to ask you about it. I think that the internet and social media has made, especially younger people, afraid to try because they're afraid to fail. They're afraid to get embarrassed. And I'm even talking about like athletes. Like they're so afraid to turn into a meme, a clip, a TikTok thing. When you were coming up, when I was like, we didn't have to worry about that. Is that a real thing?
I mean, I think there's something to that. I think sometimes social media is maybe like demonized too much, and I think sometimes it exacerbates original human nature. And you were a fifth or sixth grader once, and I was too, and everyone was. And really, I think honestly, middle school kids, they're the biggest dicks of everyone. Like kids are the worst to each other in middle school, for sure. I coached all the ages, and middle school is the worst one. And there's that like. And it's funny now, like being older and having talked to other people who've gone through the same experience, or talking to kids who are currently going through the same experience. Like, I thought about this stuff sometimes, but not like a fraction of what a lot of other people thought about, right? Like, am I wearing the right things? Am I saying the right things? Am I hanging out with the right people? Like, these type of things, like, that's human nature. Like that's, I had those thoughts in middle school. And, like I said, now given I talk to other people, not nearly as much as they did. Some people are like paralyzed by like the choosing which friend group to hang out with or what clothes to wear or, stuff like that. So no, I think obviously social media maybe makes it a little bit worse, but I think those thoughts and behaviors are probably already within our human nature.
So what I was going to say like some 10 minutes ago was I'm happy that you wrote this book entitled Funky.
Yes.
And it comes out October the 25th. There it is. So next Tuesday, you can get it now. You can pre-order it on Amazon and all the other places where you get your books. Because I feel like there's revisionist history when it comes to your career. And I don't think that that's fair. I don't think it's fair, especially the way
in nature, though,
MMA fans talk about you. And now it has happened to Tyron, and I don't know if it's the Jake Paul thing, and I don't even think it has a lot to do with Jake Paul. It's probably stemming from the Masvidal fight and then the subsequent.
I think Jake Paul's got definitely has a little bit to do with it.
You think so?
I think people dislike him so strongly. I mean, like I was kind of indifferent. Like they asked me to fight him. Like who's this kid? Like some social media guy or YouTuber or whatever. I didn't really know who he was. And so I had no feelings towards him. It was just like, hey, this guy wants to fight. Okay, let's fight, whatever. Whereas a lot of people had this like really severe distaste for him. And so the notion that he might be at least a little good at boxing is like something they can't handle. Like he's obviously like, I was hoping he sucked. I probably got the worst end of this. I was hoping he was really bad. I was going to beat him up. That was going to be a lot of fun. And I was going to make some money. And there we go. And, now he's fighting Anderson Silva, and he's actually not that much of an underdog. I mean, Errol, if I told you I was going to box Anderson Silva, you'd be like, hey, Ben, you're going to get your ass beat. And I'd be like, oh, it's Anderson Silva. He's really good. So, unfortunately, he is significantly better than anyone anticipated. And that was something I didn't anticipate. And yeah, I think MMA fans really struggle with that because they really, really don't like this guy.
And you write about Jake in the book. Do you regret taking that fight?
No. Life sucks if you have too many regrets.
But
I try to live my life with any.
It doesn't bother you that if it's because of him, if it's because of like people don't remember how there was a period you weren't getting touched. Like the stats in your fights, they may not have been, the most fan-friendly, exciting fights, but that was dominance unlike we had ever seen for quite a while. And no one wants to acknowledge it, talk about it. They want to talk about the last couple fights, the losses. That's not fair to me.
This is human beings. This is what
that doesn't annoy you?
No, because I've accepted people for who they are. I talk about in my book early, one of my first experiences, I've probably said this to you before, but one of my first experiences with, and this is right, pre-social media. So like the mass of human beings, right? Like lots of people thinking together like in a hive mind there was wrestling forums. And so this is the year, 2000. So this predates social media significantly. Have I told you this before? Am I going to bore you?
I don't think so. No, go ahead. It's good stuff.
I've never told you. Okay. So I got done with, we essentially go sectionals, then state in Wisconsin, right? I got done with sectionals. and everyone says, hey, there's this forum and everyone's talking about you. Because my thing that year was I wanted to set the state takedown record, and I did, right? But it was so, now looking back, it was so boring because I would take kids down and let them up just repetitively. And so naturally that engendered a lot of dislike from people, right? So someone says, hey, there's these forums and people are talking about you. I said, okay, cool. I've never heard of this. Let me go look at these things. And sure enough, there's these people just talking all this shit. And I knew it then, and I'm certain of it now, but it's like 90% adults, you know? And so I fired back. I'm like, I'm gonna win state next week. I'm gonna whoop this dude and I'm gonna whoop that dude and blah, 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 blah. And I did. I went and whooped them. But people hated me for it. And so then, of course, I just continued to antagonize them for the next 2 years of my high school career. And I started recognizing how easy it was to upset people. Right. And this is a 15, 16-year-old kid. Like, I would just do something stupid. Like, I mean, one thing I did was grow my hair out, right? That made people mad. Like, oh, his hair is so dumb. He needs to cut his hair. Or I would take this we called it the ghetto blaster. It was like a boom box back before. This is pre iPad day, or not iPad. What were the first things called?
iPod, yeah.
Pre iPod days.
Yeah.
I would take a boom box and play it, and it just makes everyone so mad. And so I saw very early on how group psychology worked, and obviously how I could use it to continue to antagonize people, and get people to talk about me, right? Which I would use later in MMA. But I also realized it was fully irrational, and that people really want to have someone to hate. Like, that is a big part. I don't know if you realize this is a big part of sports. It's like everyone wants someone to cheer against, everyone wants someone to hate. So that's fine. I was fine being that guy, but I realized how people's minds work. And MMA is classic. Like, dude, you can have a great. And this is not me talking about myself. You could apply this to 27 other people. You can have an outstanding career. You could have a great run. You lose, and you're a bum, right? Like once or twice, and people are like, "Oh, that dude sucks." I knew he sucked. He was terrible. He was always terrible. It's like that's just how MMA is. And as a fighter, if you don't accept that, if you start having your ego tied in with the fans' opinion of you, dude, you're gonna be all jacked up. You are gonna be like, "Oh, I feel so great because the fans love me," and then the fans turn on you. You're like, "Oh, I'm a piece of shit. No one likes me." Wow, that's what the fans do.
When you go back, and I know that you're going back to Missouri this weekend. When you go back, do you get that love? Do you feel appreciation?
Yeah. I mean, I do generally in my life, I feel appreciation. It's pretty rare that I feel. I mean, it's social media, they'll say that, but no one treats me like everyone treats me great, right? I have an outstanding life. I haven't been to Mizzou. When was the last time I was there? It's been maybe a couple of years. But I'm really excited because I get to go to the football game. We have 5 Askren Wrestling Academy wrestlers on Mizzou's team now, one of which is a national champ. So I get to kind of see those guys, hang out with them. Yeah, so I'm really excited for it.
Even the trade, people look back on the trade, and I know you write about the trade as well, and it's fascinating stuff. Like even the trade, I feel like is looked at with a bit of revisionist history goggles. Like, oh, what a horrible deal that was. By the way, when you came over to the UFC, I don't know if I've ever seen someone garner that much heat in that quick amount of time. Like I remember your social media game. You were like spraying everyone with an Uzi. It was like you showed up at MSG. Remember that? Like it was like the NWO showing up back in the wrestling days, if that means anything to you. You were on fire. They would have done that deal 10 out of 10 times. And yet now people look at it like,
and then,
oh, what a dumb deal.
Journeyman bum Masvidal became one of the biggest stars in the game. You're welcome, George.
Do you think he appreciates you for that?
If he doesn't, he's an ungrateful son of a bitch. How about that? He needs to send me a Christmas card every year for the next 20 years. But legit, if he doesn't, he's ungrateful. But he probably doesn't want to give me credit for anything. So suck it, George. With the trade, the other thing the trade was tremendous is Demetrius he's still over there kicking butt, but it's like I was retired. I honestly, that one championship, yeah, they did do a good job because I wasn't gonna do nothing else for him. I said I'm done. So they had an asset that was gonna do nothing. I was happily retired doing nothing. And then they were able to get Demetrius Johnson, who's now had, I don't know, 10 fights, or he's had a lot of fights for them. And then UFC, I think it was just like they were just obviously if they really, really wanted to keep Demetrius, they would have. Um, and I think it was just one of those things where for whatever reason, and I guess I would have guesses, but I'm not gonna put it out there because I don't know, like their relationship wasn't that great. They just didn't really like each other. There was a lot of bitterness there, and it was yeah, he wanted out, and they let him out, and it worked out great. Honestly, there should be more trades in MMA.
I was
There
just
really
gonna
should.
ask you that. Are you surprised?
There really should be. I don't know what they're doing. Like the only one that ever happened was awesome.
Yes.
Like, why has no one said, "Hey, that was really cool"? Like, why don't we go do that again?
I'm shocked. Maybe I'm not shocked.
Shocking. No,
there's so many egos. There's so many egos. But like a Bellator and PFL, make a freaking trade, guys. Spice things up.
But even with the egos between I'll say the four more major ones around PFL, one championship, Bellator, and UFC. Surely there are some fighters in all those organizations that don't really want to be there anymore.
Sure, of course.
So you got like, hey, we have 500 fighters. Hey, these 50 don't really want to be here anymore. Like, and they're kind of tough to deal with, pain in their butt. Who can we go get? Who can we go get in exchange for them? How can we get rid of them? They don't even want to be here. Like, let's go. Let's get rid of them. Like I don't know. It seems reasonable.
You have to agree to it, right? Like that trade doesn't happen if you don't agree to it.
Yeah, I would have had to agree. Actually, did I? I don't even think about it because there was no debating for me. It was like, yeah, let's freaking go. But yeah, I would think the athlete would probably have to agree, but I'm not sure.
But I feel like in most cases, like, hey, AJ McKee, you're unhappy here. We're going to trade you to the UFC for so and so. Makes sense. By the way, I wanted to mention this just to prove that I did read the book. Page 106 of your great book entitled Funky, which comes out October 25th. Yeah. You write this. I didn't want any of that to happen. Neither did Bellator or the UFC. You're talking about your foray before trying to go to the, when you tried to go to the UFC initially, which hated when information on fighter pay became public. The matching clause was a problem that I needed to figure out before doing anything. This is when you left Bellator. In truth, I genuinely believed I was headed to the UFC. Yeah. At this point, I was undefeated, a perfect 12-0, vocal, polarizing, dismissive of certain media, smug, confident, cocky, and all kinds of other adjectives that got thrown around in the media. Now, certain media has a little footnote, number 58, and if you go down, it says, namely Ariel Helwani, with whom I had beef for talking shit about my fight with Douglas Lima. He quote-unquote banned me from his show. I tweeted to him that I didn't want to discuss the merits of my style with a non-fighter while inviting him to, quote, go in a cage with me. When you do that, I'll do your show. Otherwise, kiss my ass, end quote. We later reconciled. I mean, here's the thing about that. That all happened. I feel like we later reconciled is unfair to the relationship that we developed afterwards. Like, I feel like you said, we not only did we reconcile, he became one of my favorites in the game, and we had some great moments and interviews afterward. I mean, I feel like for someone that may not know, you might think to yourself like, "Oh, they're still kind of frosty." Is that a fair? Is that a fair criticism?
I guess that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I think we later reconciled is also it's truthful.
It is truthful. You regret that, don't you? Right?
One thing, writing the book, you say you like, you asked earlier about regrets. I think specifically in reference to the Jake Paul fight, and living life with regrets is bad. Like if you regret saying something to someone or doing something to someone, like call them up, tell them like, hey man, I'm sorry, I was an asshole, whatever, right? But like the one thing, writing the book and then I read through it obviously a couple of times to make sure everything was factually correct, and then I did the audio book, which that was really hard.
Wow.
Is like, how did I not end up in the UFC? I mean, I remember at the time in 2013, like having those thoughts, like, how did that not work out? I'm like 12-0, ranked like 7 in the world or something. Like, how did this not work out?
And you still don't have the answer, right?
I still don't have the answer. And I said, so this book was written, like I said, during Corona. And then the one and only times Dana and I had phone conversations was actually during the Jake Paul fight because he hated Jake Paul. And so a couple of times he just called me just to kind of chat about boxing and whatnot. But those were literally my own. I never had a
really? Even when you got traded?
No.
Wow.
No, I like conversations. I wish I would have asked him. Yeah, because it was just like, why did that not work out? And I have my guesses, obviously, and I put them in the book. But yeah, not the notion that I was 12-0 and number 6, 7, 8 in the world, um, with the wrestling pedigree that I had. And there was a lot of excuses he gave. And unfortunately, I don't think you did, but a lot of the media ate it up. But like he doesn't want the challenges. He's not experienced enough. Like
Yeah.
all these things, he's not gonna sell any fights. All those are now obviously false. And so, like, what was the real reason? And I would guess it was something about me being in Bellator.
You challenged
Something
him a
like
little
that.
bit with the USADA stuff, and I think he might have.
Challenged him with the USADA stuff, and that probably had a little bit to do with it. But that can't be the whole thing. Like, there's no
I
way.
mean, he holds a grudge. Let me tell you.
He's a grudge.
And so he would call you up to check in on how the training was going to talk boxing. Like, why was he calling you up?
Yeah, a couple times. Yeah, he called me up and yeah.
He set you up with Freddie Roach too, right?
He did, yeah.
He really wanted you to beat Jake Paul.
Yeah, of course.
And I don't think
I was like an asset that, again, kind of like when I retired from one, I was an asset that was no longer of any value to them because I wasn't going to fight again.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, if Jake Paul calls out someone on my active roster, then I might lose them for a said period of time, or if they lose, maybe they lose value, and I'm an asset who has no value because I'm not fighting anymore. So it's like he's probably like happy for me to be a distraction, and he probably thought the same thing I did, that hey, this dude like legit sucks, and
Right.
it's gonna be he might outbox me for a couple rounds. He's getting tired. Then I'm gonna rough him up.
By the way, who do you think wins, Jake or Anderson?
This isn't like the Khamzat.
No, this one's actually happening in a week and a half.
Well, I don't understand, but I know about like the Bo Nickal. Like for me, it's a guess. Like I don't know. Like it feels like I mean, honestly, I genuinely thought Tyron was gonna beat him up. I thought I was gonna beat him up. Um, so obviously I've underestimated him multiple times now. So, obviously part of me says, well, if he beats up Anderson, I feel a little bit better about myself because surely Anderson's like 10 times better of a boxer than I am. And if he loses, I get to see him beat up, which I think everyone wants to see him get beat up. So I think, who doesn't want to see him get beat up? Everyone wants to see that.
I feel like there's some 13-year-olds.
I'm sure he fully understands that. He fully understands it, and he's good with it. I bet.
You gonna watch?
Nah, probably not. Oh, there's a big wrestling event that a bunch of my wrestlers are taking part in called Who's the Big Cheese? It's going to be like to determine who the number one wrestler is in Wisconsin. And that's at night.
So you don't feel like any kind of emotional investment in this story? No. MMA guy? No, nothing. You've completely rid yourself of it.
Yeah.
All right. That's fair. By the way, you talked about the hair. Talk about the hair in the book as well. I wanted to ask you a question. We have this, guys. I want to ask you who wore it better? Me or you?
Oh, I've seen this picture before.
I mean,
definitely me. Look how big that afro is.
Are you kidding? I feel like mine is a lot thicker.
I think you do like is it a black power symbol in your right hand? What are you doing over there?
Well, no, I'm just saying, power to the people. Power to the people, I'm fighting for the little man.
You should grow your hair out again because you got a nice hairline. It's not like you're getting old and you're losing all your hair, Errol.
That was me in college back in the day. How old are you in this picture?
17, probably.
Wow.
You know who that is in the background right there, right?
Kurt Angle?
No. Guess again.
Come
on. You can't get this?
My eyesight is really bad. Mark Kerr.
No. How would I wrestle with those guys? Those guys are way older than me. That's freaking Johnny Hendricks. Come on.
Wow.
I freaking lost to Johnny Hendricks that year at Junior Nationals.
By the way, it looks nothing like Johnny Hendricks.
I always wanted to get that. Yes, it does. It looks exactly like him right behind me.
Wow.
Like zoom in, producer. Who's producing the show?
Yeah, they can't
zoom in
do
on that.
They can't zoom in. We don't have that kind of capability. I don't think so. But yeah, okay, I'll take your word for it. I just think mine looked a lot thicker. By the way, did the ladies like yours? They didn't like mine.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't think this would be my advice to all the young men out there.
Sure.
Because for a while, in my very younger years, I thought, I ain't a very good looking dude, so girls aren't gonna like me. And then I realized if you just go start talking to them and say the right things, like they're totally into it.
And
that's it.
And
that's
then
all you gotta do.
Now you got.
And you get a lot of reps. To take it back to the beginning of the conversation.
Sure.
You gotta be okay with getting turned down. You're gonna fail sometimes, but you just keep attacking like a single leg. I tell my wrestlers, you shoot the single leg for the first time, probably not going to be very good at it. You shoot it for the hundredth time, you're going to be better. You shoot it for the 1,000th time, now you're going to know where to go for some success.
I mean, if there isn't a better promo, if you will, for the book and the lessons, because it's not just a book about your life, it's about getting knocked down, dusting yourself off, fighting again. And I always feel weird saying this, but I hope you know it's a compliment because it didn't happen often to you. No one has ever lost better than you. Do you know what I mean? And I hope you understand where I'm coming from because everyone loses at some point, even if it's just once. But everyone loses.
That son of a bitch, Khabib.
Yeah, I guess. Everyone loses. You dealt with it better than anyone. Last thing, by the way, speaking of which, Islam, Charles, who do you got? I mean, I feel like this is a fight that you would love, right?
Yeah. This is another one that I've been having a very.
You've been sitting on the fence a lot with these predictions.
I have been.
Yeah.
But I told you I always try to be authentic and say how I feel. It's really weird. I look at Islam's record to me is so strange because he's won so many damn fights in a row, but yet he's never fought anyone that's like in the top 5. Like, how have they not bumped him up? And maybe the answer is a lot of people say no to him, right? That's definitely a possibility. I just did this today. Hold on. But yeah, I mean, it was like, I think the best guy he fought was Dan Hooker, who's, he's
short
good,
notice.
but he's like, like a 6 through 10 ranked guy type thing. Yeah, probably Dan. I mean, Bobby Green's a tough guy. Yeah, you look through that record and you're like, how has he never fought any of the other guys? It's almost preposterous that he's won this many fights, but not fought in, Poirier or Chandler or
Now, in his defense, he was booked against some, RDA a couple times, some bad luck, some injuries, but you're 100% right.
Yeah. So it's tough. So I'm gonna go Charles just because he's been so good for so long. If you look at his last, I think 8 fights, it's like a who's who. He's just taking out the best dudes. He take them out in different ways on the ground. He took Tony down and controlled him. He strikes well. So I'm gonna go with him.
All right. Again, the book is called Funky, October 25th. Congratulations. It's a great read. Really, and you're right. There haven't been a lot of great MMA books, so I'm happy. And I know your career is not just MMA, but I'm happy that you did this and you got the great Chuck Mindenhall by your side. So that alone is all you need to know. There's the picture, pre-order now. It's available wherever you get your books, October 25th. Fun to do this, Ben. Thank you very much. Good luck with the book.
Have a great day.